Today I have Clive Lugmayer with me. I want to thank you, Clive, for being with us today and sharing your journey that you've been on.
My pleasure.
I appreciate you sharing any bits of wisdom that you would have for us today.
Very few and far between, I'll tell you that now.
You've had your share.
I've had my
of
experiences.
You've had your experiences, and I would like you to share some of those with our listeners. Maybe we could start with 2017, when you had some heart issues?
Well, about mid-2017, I started having chest pains. I was out in the yard, thought it was chemical reaction. I was getting sick, nauseated, a lot of nausea. And it progressed on a weekly basis. I'd start throwing up, having chest pains. The pains were radial, kind of like, the best way to describe the pains. If you toss a stone into a pool of water and they radiate it, just like that. Excuse me, that's going to happen periodically. I'll explain why in a few minutes. But I started having chest pains, throwing up. Never had the pain in the left arm or anything like that, but over the course of the next few months, I had about what they called mini heart attacks. And I averaged about 3 a week over the next 6 months. So in December and January, they all culminated where I had 3 relative back-to-back widowmakers. And it came out that I had 3 of my 4 arteries were blocked and my aortic valve had collapsed. So they went in and did some surgery on me. And here I am now.
Yeah.
No worse for the wear, I guess.
And how was the surgery?
I don't remember it, but from what I'm told, when they opened me up, they couldn't understand why I was still alive. They said my heart was gray and it was pretty much dead. I think it was 7 hours total surgery time to do the work they had to do. They came out and talked to my wife, and they said that she had told them there were dozens of people praying, numbers of churches praying for my recovery and my safety. And prayer works.
I believe it.
That's all I can say on that.
And faith had a large part in why you're still with us today.
Faith is an elusive thing. I was christened Presbyterian. I was, about 8 weeks old. And I found out later in life that I was actually Jewish. So I started practicing the Judaic belief. And then I met a young lady who showed me that, Baptists were okay. They ate pretty well. So, but then I went in the military and I had an encounter which solidified my faith. I encountered Christ. Not everybody says, "Oh, I found Christ." Not like that. Literally, I was in front of him. There was how to describe this without sounding hokey, I guess. You hear these things on these TVs. Oh yeah, you gotta wonder about these people. Here's what happened to me. It was a Friday evening. I was in West Germany. I was stationed in the military at the time. I was in the Army. I went upstairs to bed around, 9 o'clock, 9:30. And I went straight to sleep. It was unusual. Normally, I toss and turn a bit, but I went straight into sleep. And I was aware. I had an awareness. I wasn't in my barracks, but I was awake. And I was in an area, it was like mist and fog and all that stuff. And I saw, and probably about 50 feet, 60 feet away from me, somebody lying down on a table or an image. And I started walking towards it. And I heard, it said, "Clive, I am real. You must believe." And I woke up, just like that. I got up, went and got a drink of water, came back, laid back down, I was out again, just like that. And I was in the same location when I woke up. And I looked and saw this person lying there, and I walked towards him. And I walked up on who I believe to be Jesus Christ. He was laying, his arms were outstretched. I could see his wrists marked. He was in a white robe. That was, I guess, I don't know, in my mind typical, I guess, but that's what I saw. And he looked up at me, and his eyes were sorrowful, and he says, "Clive, I am real. You must believe in me." And I woke up again. Boom. I got up, walked downstairs. I was on the third floor, walked down, talked to this door guard, went back upstairs. About 15 minutes later, laid down, and I, boom, asleep again, just like that. And I'm standing in front of a huge set of doors, probably 100 foot tall, wide. I can't tell how wide they were. And I could see them. I wasn't right in front of them. I was like maybe 30 feet back, 20 feet back. But I could see them, and they were the wrought iron bolts and the hewn oak, just tremendous. And the doors burst open. It's like somebody was coming out, like, boom, just flipped them right open. And a voice said, "No one comes to the Father but through me." He said, "Clive, I am real." And a Bible appeared, big, beautiful, a Gutenberg probably, for all I know. And it opened up, and the pages flipped. And "You must believe." Then all of a sudden, the whole thing just erupted in ball of flame. And it was terrifying. It terrified me. And I woke up again on a very cold sweat, profusely sweating. I did not sleep for the rest of the night. And I honestly can sit here and say that I had my encounter with Jesus Christ that night. And from that point on, I have done my best to be a follower of Christ. Not a great one at times, but I do my best to follow the words, And that's where I'm at in my spiritual.
How did that play into after you had your heart surgery and then moving into more difficulties?
I didn't have any problem when I went in for the surgery because I knew my life was in God's hands. Without question. I had
What confidence? I mean, that says a lot.
But the confidence I had, knowing that I was in my Savior's hands, and I could feel myself just comforted. There were no words spoken. It was just there.
I think that's encouraging.
How to explain it?
A lot of people with health issues are going to be hearing this. And I think they're going to be encouraged by some more of your story that you have.
I'm not even encouraged with my story.
Well,
Jokingly,
believe me, I know, but the strength that you have is something I admire.
I don't consider it strength. I consider it living.
Yes, but I've seen you carry on without complaining or griping or bemoaning your health issues. And there's a type of strength in that I admire.
And it's funny that you mention that. Well, not funny, haha. But I look at you, knowing what you've been going through your years, and I just I can't fathom the strength that you have. I look at myself compared to you, and I think, I've got it easy.
Well, we all have our skills, talents, good side, bad side.
Yeah,
And
I guess
you have talents in certain areas that I don't, and vice versa.
Vice versa, you know.
Right.
I mean, we could sit here all day long. You could talk about, you know, you've got degrees in education, so on and so forth.
Might as well get that one.
I'm not going to worry about it.
Okay. I'm sorry. We're talking about each other's strengths and talents and abilities.
I guess, you know, I have developed certain attitudes, I guess you could call it. My life experiences, I relate it like this. I did more by the time I was 23 than most people will do in a lifetime.
You were in the military, right?
That's part of, yeah.
Yes.
That's part of it. It had a great deal to mold who I am, who I became, who I think I am or should be. But there were times before that, and there were times after that. But right around that, I spent more of a life by the time I was 23. I was on the go from the day pretty much from the day I was born. We moved 14 times in 11 years. My father was not in the military. He was an engineer, a brilliant engineer. And we moved all the time. So I had all those experiences of moving and relocating, getting to know people, then to find out who I was, because I was never around enough people to actually identify with any of them. So I really had nothing to base it on. I just had to develop my own personality. And it's allowed me a certain latitude to develop this core belief that I can do most anything, I can face anything, and face it head on without issue. And I try to do that. And I've had, my wife says I've lived out at least 2 cats. You know, cats with 9 lives. I can honestly say that's true. I can count that I should be dead. I have faced death at least 9 times, maybe 12. But it's just because I don't go out looking for those situations, they just happen. But I meet it face on. And I have no expectations of coming out alive. I really don't. And I guess this kind of goes back to my faith now. I know that I'm in God's hands. You know, whatever happens to me is either going to, you know, make me have a different perspective on something, or I'm going to be sitting in front of the Lord, looking back at my life and saying, that was pretty cool. You know? So that's how I look at that now.
So because of your experiences, death really
doesn't
not
bother
a fearful thing.
I have respect for my life, but I don't have fear of death. And I know this. And it drives some people I know just up the wall. How can you be so cavalier? Well, I could cross the street tomorrow and get killed. Get hit by a car, attacked by a rabbit. My daughter was just bitten by a cat they may think was rabid. They don't know. You know, you don't know what's going to happen. My son a couple years ago was bitten by a copperhead. You don't know what's going to happen. I got bit by a brown recluse. Who would have thought, you know? That was a nasty experience. But I don't worry about, am I going to live or die? I just enjoy, I don't want to say I enjoy the experience of the fear of death or the challenge of death, but it builds on my character. It builds who I am. If I can make it through this, I'm doing pretty good. You know, God's given me another feather to put in that cap.
And because of that, you can face what you have now.
Yes, my death sentence.
Do you mind sharing that with us?
Yeah. In mid-2017, about the same time I started having heart attacks, I was diagnosed with a condition called idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. And what it is a condition that causes leathering of the alveoli sacs in the lungs. And they become what's called fibrotic. I'm not exactly sure what that means. It's a medical term. But it reduces my lung capacity continually. And the prognosis is, from when they determine you have this, is 3 to 5 years for termination. So on the short side, I've got 6 months left. On the long side, it could be longer. They're not sure. Done anything. There's that hope at the back of my mind that something will. I'm not going to lie. Wouldn't mind having 20 more years, but that doesn't seem realistic.
But here we are talking about this grave disorder,
Yeah.
and you're able to laugh.
What can you do?
Well, okay, but there's many
All right,
people.
I'm being I know I'm being a jerk when I say that.
But really,
I don't want to give anybody false hope about stuff.
true, but you can give them hope about tomorrow, their quality of life, and it's an attitude that we have inside.
That's probably the best thing that could be said, is that it's how your attitude is how the rest of your life will be. Thank God for another breath of fresh air, and I do. It's hard, but I'm okay with it.
And you said something, you and kind of laughingly, thank God, but there's a sense of gratefulness.
Yeah.
I mean, where does that fit in?
I'm glad for each day because it's one more day I get to spend with my family, my wife. It's one more day that I can tell people, hey, live. Don't dwell on, you're going to die. I'm going to die. Everybody's going to die. We're all terminal. But what do you do with that time? What kind of quality are you going to make?
Right.
What are you going to do that's going to change somebody's life? What kind of a model can I be to my children that they can see that, Dad doesn't give in. He doesn't give up. He fights. My friends, what are they going to think? They're going to, some of them, I know what some of them think, that's okay. I guess this kind of attitude goes back to, how do I want to please God? And if that's what He wants me to do, I'm good. Yeah. So that forms a lot of how I look at things these days. Am I going to be a better Christian for my experiences? Or am I going to let my experiences define me? I let my experiences not define me, but support me. He was able to get through this period of his life and still not turn from God. He got through the hardest things, things that some people would never even imagine. And they say, why? Because God put this in front of me and I had to go through this. God gave me these abilities to do these things, and they help define and support who I am through Him. And if I failed them, He was always there to tell me it was okay.
Well, Clive, I appreciate your time and you being forthright and honest with all of your experiences, intimate experiences that a lot of people wouldn't talk about. And I think that we have many people that are going to be inspired and encouraged by what you've offered to us today. Thank you again. Bless you.
It was a pleasure, an honor and a privilege, you asking me to do this. And if this can help even one person, and it's worth every minute of every day.
It will. Thank you, Clive.
Thank you.
Clive Lugmayer. Thank you.